When Emily sent her husband a message saying, "I'm going on vacation with my ex, don't be jealous," she thought she would crush him. But Jake, feeding their daughter pizza, was already planning his next move. In 2 weeks, Emily lost everything: her home, her family, her future. This isn't just revenge, it's a master class in cold-blooded justice. What would you do if you received a text like this? Write in the comments. The rain hammered against the windows of Jake Harris's split-level home in suburban Atlanta, Georgia, a steady drumbeat that matched the rhythm of his thoughts. Inside, the kitchen glowed under soft lights, filled with the scent of pepperoni pizza. Jake, a 35-year-old software engineer with a knack for solving problems, sat across from his 5-year-old daughter, Sophie, at the wooden table. Her giggles echoed as she swiped a string of cheese from her chin, her small hands waving a plastic dinosaur in the air. "Rawr! Dino wants more pizza, Daddy!" Sophie declared, her eyes bright with mischief. Jake chuckled, slicing another piece and sliding it onto her plate. "Only if Dino says please first." Their nightly routine, pizza, laughter, and silly games, was his anchor, a slice of normalcy in a life that had started to feel unsteady. His wife, Emily, had been distant for months. Late nights at her marketing job, hushed phone calls, and vague talk about needing to find herself had chipped away at their once solid marriage. Jake pushed the unease aside, focusing on Sophie's chatter about her kindergarten art project. His phone buzzed on the counter, Emily's name flashing across the screen. Jake's stomach tightened, a gut instinct that trouble was brewing. He wiped his hands on a napkin, kissed Sophie's forehead, and grabbed the phone. The message hit like a punch. "Flying to Cancun with my ex, don't be jealous." 11 words. Each one a shard of glass. Jake stared at the screen, the world narrowing to those letters. Emily's ex could only be Mike Rogers, her college boyfriend, now married to Caitlin Brown, a powerhouse CEO of Braun Enterprises, one of Georgia's biggest real estate firms. Mike was a charming nobody riding Caitlin's coattails, but Emily had mentioned him too often lately, her voice softening in a way that twisted Jake's gut. Sophie's voice broke through. "Daddy, why's your face all funny?" Jake forced a smile, his mind racing but his hands steady. "Just thinking about work, kiddo. Finish your pizza, okay? Gotta grow strong like a T-Rex." He ruffled her hair, hiding the storm brewing inside. Emily thought she'd lobbed a grenade and walked away. She didn't know Jake wasn't the type to crumble. He built solutions, line by line, like code. He typed a reply, fingers deliberate. "Have a great trip. Sophie and I will be fine." Emily's response came fast. "That's it? No questions?" Jake's lips curved, not in warmth but in resolve. "You're an adult. Make your choices." The typing dots blinked then vanished, replaced by, "I'll be gone 2 weeks, maybe more." Jake's answer was instant. "Take your time. We're good." He set the phone down, the screen dimming as Sophie hummed a tune, oblivious to the fault lines splitting their family. Emily thought she'd silenced him, left him to stew in hurt. She was wrong. Jake wasn't sulking, he was strategizing. The rain outside thickened, but inside, his mind was clear, sharp, and already moving to the next step. After tucking Sophie into bed, her stuffed dinosaur clutched tight, Jake sat at the kitchen table, laptop open. The house was quiet, save for the hum of the fridge and the patter of rain. He didn't reread Emily's message. He didn't need to. Instead, he dialed Simon Kelly, a family lawyer known for cutting through courtroom chaos like a blade. Simon answered on the first ring, his voice gravelly but alert despite the late hour. "Jake, what's wrong?" Simon asked, sensing the weight behind the call. "Emily left Sophie to go to Cancun with her ex. She texted me about it. I need to protect my daughter." Jake's tone was calm, but each word carried iron. Simon exhaled. "She put it in writing? Send it to me. Now." Jake forwarded the message, the screenshot landing in Simon's inbox with a digital thud. "I'm not letting her walk back and like nothing happened," Jake said. "Sophie deserves better." "Damn right she does," Simon replied. "That text is a gift. Abandonment, clear as day. We'll file for emergency custody first thing tomorrow." Courts don't mess around when a parent ditches their kid for a fling. Do it. Jake said, his voice steady. I want it airtight. By dawn, Simon had drafted the petition. Jake dropped Sophie off at kindergarten, her backpack bouncing as she waved goodbye. He drove straight to Simon's office downtown, a sleek building that screamed competence. Simon slid the phone across his desk, Emily's message glowing on the screen. This, he said, tapping the glass, is as good as a signed confession. Judges hate this kind of recklessness. By noon, they were in Fulton County Family Court. Jake stood tall, his gray tie knotted tightly, as Simon presented the case. The judge, a woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, studied the text projected on a courtroom monitor. Emily's absence spoke louder than her words. A mother leaves her 5-year-old for a vacation with another man and thinks the text covers it? The judge said, her voice dripping with disbelief. Temporary custody granted to Mr. Harris, effective immediately. Full hearing in 2 weeks. The gavel cracked, sealing the first move in Jake's plan. He walked out of the courthouse, the rain now a drizzle, and exhaled. In less than 12 hours, he'd secured Sophie's safety. Emily's taunt had backfired, handing Jake the legal upper hand. But he wasn't done. Custody was step one. Emily's world, built on their shared life, their accounts, their home, was about to unravel. That evening, Jake made Sophie her favorite grilled cheese, her laughter filling the kitchen as she recounted her day. His phone buzzed again, another text from Emily. A photo of her sipping a cocktail, the Cancun sunset blazing behind her. Wish you were here. Loosen up, Jake. He stared at the image, her smugness practically leaping off the screen. She thought he was sulking, defeated. Instead, he was rewriting her future. He replied, Looks fun. Sophie's happy here. Then he set the phone down, flipped the sandwich in the pan, and turned up Sophie's favorite cartoon. Emily was sipping margaritas, oblivious to the fact that her life was already slipping through her fingers. Jake wasn't angry. He was methodical. And he was just getting started. Jake Harris woke to the soft hum of his alarm, the Atlanta dawn filtering through the blinds. His daughter, Sophie, still slept soundly in her room, her dinosaur plush tucked under her arm. Last night's courtroom victory, temporary custody of Sophie, sat like a foundation stone in his plan, but Jake knew it was only the beginning. Emily, his wife of 10 years, was halfway across the globe in Cancun, basking in her reckless fling with Mike Rogers. Her text, "Flying to Cancun with my ex, don't be jealous," still burned in his mind, not for the pain it caused but for the leverage it offered. Jake wasn't unraveling. He was building a case, brick by calculated brick. He dropped Sophie at kindergarten, her cheerful wave a reminder of what was at stake. Back in his car, he dialed Linda Carter, the manager at their local bank branch, a woman he'd known since opening his first account. "Linda, I need to meet." "It's urgent," Jake said, his voice even but firm. They set a time for 10 a.m. Before hanging up, he emailed her a copy of the custody order, the judge's signature stark against the page. At the bank, Linda greeted him with a nod, her office a quiet enclave amid the hum of tellers. Jake slid the custody order across her desk. "Emily left Sophie to chase her ex. I've got custody now. I need to secure our finances for my daughter's future." Linda scanned the document, her pen tapping lightly as she verified the court's seal. "This is ironclad," she said. "With this, we can protect Sophie's interests." "What do you want to do?" "Freeze all joint accounts," Jake replied. "Transfer the balances to a new account in my name, with a custodial trust for Sophie. Cancel every card linked to Emily." Linda nodded, her fingers already moving across her keyboard. "It'll take a couple of hours. Her cards will stop working by tomorrow morning. The trust will ensure Sophie's taken care of, no matter what." Jake leaned back, the weight of his decision settling in. Emily's lifestyle, her spa days, her designer bags, her carefree spending, was about to hit a wall. By noon, the bank had executed his instructions. New account numbers were issued, joint funds redirected, and Emily's access severed. Jake left with a folder of paperwork, each page a step toward shielding Sophie from her mother's betrayal. Back home, he called Tom Wilson, a private investigator with a reputation for delivering airtight evidence. Tom picked up on the second ring, his voice gruff but professional. "Jake Harris. Been a while. What's the job? Emily's in Cancun with Mike Rogers, Caitlin Brown's husband. Jake said. I need proof. Photos, receipts, anything a judge can't ignore. Tom let out a low whistle. Caitlin Brown? That's a hornet's nest. Mike's playing with fire, and Caitlin's not the forgiving type. Give me their flight details, and I'll track them down. Jake sent the itinerary, pieced together from Emily's social media posts and a quick call to their travel agent. 48 hours, Tom. I need it fast. Tom chuckled. You'll have a photo album by Wednesday. They're not exactly hiding. That evening, as Sophie colored at the kitchen table, Jake's phone lit up with another text from Emily. A selfie by the pool, her sunglasses reflecting palm trees, Mike's arm just visible at the edge of the frame. This place is paradise. You should try relaxing sometime. Jake's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone light in his reply. Looks nice. Sophie's loving her coloring book. He hit send, then turned to Sophie. What's that, kiddo? A dragon? Dragon and a castle, she said, holding up her paper proudly. Jake grinned, but his mind was elsewhere. Emily thought she was winning, taunting him from her tropical escape. She didn't know her cards would soon bounce, her accounts dry. She didn't know Jake was already 3 moves ahead. The next morning, Jake contacted Atlanta Premier Moving Services, a company known for discreet relocations. He gave clear orders: pack Emily's belongings and deliver them to her parents' house in Savannah. At 11 a.m., a truck rolled up to his curb. 3 movers, efficient and silent, followed Jake through the house. Everything of hers, he said, pointing to the master bedroom. Clothes, jewelry, cosmetics. Leave anything with Sophie's name on it. The movers worked fast, boxing up dresses, perfumes, and trinkets. By 2 p.m., the bedroom was half empty, Emily's presence reduced to neatly labeled cardboard. Emily, closet. Emily, bathroom. Jake handed the team leader an address in Savannah and a cash tip. Drop it on their porch. No need to knock. The truck pulled away, carrying the remnants of Emily's life. Jake stood in the now quiet bedroom, the air lighter without her things. It wasn't about erasing her, it was about protecting what mattered. By Tuesday, Tom Wilson called with an update. Got them, he said. Cancun Resort, registered under Mike's name. They're not subtle, dinner reservations, beach strolls, the works. I'll have photos by tomorrow night. Jake's voice stayed level. Make sure they're clear. No room for doubt. That night, as Sophie slept, Jake sat at his laptop, researching Caitlin Brown. Her name dominated Atlanta's business scene, her company a titan in real estate. Mike was her trophy husband, a fact everyone knew. If Caitlin saw proof of his affair, the fallout would be seismic. Jake wasn't just dismantling Emily's world, he was setting the stage for Mike's ruin too. He leaned back, the plan crystallizing. Emily's next cocktail would come with a price she couldn't afford. On Wednesday morning, Tom emailed the encrypted file. Jake opened it to find a preview. Emily and Mike at a candlelit dinner, her hand on his, their laughter frozen in a high-res shot. More would follow, Tom promised, enough to bury them in court. Jake saved the file, then drafted a note to Caitlin Brown, care of Braun Enterprises. He didn't need to meet her yet. The photos would speak for themselves. As he tucked Sophie in that night, reading her a story about a brave knight, his phone buzzed again. Another photo from Emily, her toes in the sand, a sunset glowing red. Life's too short to stay stuck, Jake. He didn't reply this time. Instead, he kissed Sophie's forehead and whispered, Sleep tight, kiddo. Emily thought she was free. She had no idea her world was already crumbling, one precise step at a time. Jake Harris sat at his kitchen table, the Atlanta morning quiet except for the soft clink of Sophie's spoon against her cereal bowl. The 5-year-old hummed a tune, her crayon scattered across a half-finished dragon drawing. Jake's laptop glowed with an email from Tom Wilson, the private investigator. Attached was a zip file labeled Cancun Evidence, the weight of its contents heavier than the bytes it occupied. Jake had spent the past 3 days dismantling Emily's world, securing custody of Sophie, freezing their joint accounts, and shipping Emily's belongings to her parents in Savannah. Now, the photos Tom promised would escalate his plan to a new level. He opened the file, careful to keep the screen angled away from Sophie. The images loaded one by one. Emily and Mike Rogers at a beachside restaurant, their hands intertwined. A late-night stroll under palm trees, their shadows merging. A moment on a private balcony, Mike's lips brushing Emily's shoulder. Each shot was time-stamped, geotagged, and razor-sharp. Tom had included receipts, dinner bills, hotel charges, even a spa appointment in Mike's name. The evidence was a legal sledgehammer, ready for court. Jake's phone buzzed. Another text from Emily, a photo of her lounging by the pool, a margarita in hand, captioned, "You're missing out, Jake. Live a little." He didn't respond. Instead, he forwarded Tom's file to a secure cloud folder and began drafting a letter. The envelope, addressed to Caitlin Brown at Braun Enterprises, would carry the photos and a single note. "You deserve to know the truth." Caitlin, Mike's wife and a titan in Atlanta's real estate world, wasn't someone who tolerated betrayal. Jake was counting on her reaction to tip the scales. By noon, he stood in the marble lobby of Braun Enterprises' downtown tower. A receptionist escorted him to a private elevator, the ride to the 60th floor silent except for the hum of machinery. Caitlin's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman, took the envelope without a word and disappeared behind frosted glass doors. Jake didn't linger. The photos would do the talking. Back home, he called Atlanta Premier Moving Services to confirm the delivery of Emily's belongings. The team leader reported that the boxes, labeled Emily, Closet, Emily, Personal, sat on her parents' porch in Savannah, untouched. Emily's mother had called repeatedly, leaving voicemails Jake ignored. He wasn't ready to face their questions, not while his plan was still unfolding. That afternoon, Tom Wilson called with a follow-up. "They're still in Cancun," he said. "Mike's getting sloppy, public displays, no discretion. I've got more photos coming, but you've already got enough to sink them." Jake's voice stayed level. "Keep tracking. I want every angle covered for the hearing." Tom grunted in agreement. "You're building a fortress, man. They won't see it coming." Jake hung up and turned his attention to the next move. The house, his before the marriage, was now a liability, a reminder of a life Emily had discarded. He contacted a real estate agent, Lauren Pierce, known for quick sales in their suburb. By 3 p.m., she was walking through the rooms, her tablet in hand, snapping photos of the now half-empty spaces. "This'll move fast," Lauren said. "Family-friendly neighborhood, great schools. I'll list it tomorrow." Jake nodded. "Make it quick. I want it sold before Emily gets back." Lauren raised an eyebrow but didn't pry. She sensed the urgency, the unspoken story behind his request. By evening, a for sale sign stood in the front yard, its red letters bold against the green lawn. Sophie, oblivious to the changes, bounced into the kitchen with her latest drawing. "Daddy, look! Dino's flying now!" Jake knelt beside her, admiring the colorful scribbles. "That's the best flying Dino yet," he said, his voice warm. But his mind was on Caitlin Brown. If she'd opened the envelope, the fallout was already starting. Across the ocean, Emily sipped a drink under a Cancun sunset, unaware her cards had stopped working that morning. She tried to pay for lunch, only to be met with a polite but firm decline from the waiter. Flustered, she pulled out another card, same result. Her text to Jake went unanswered, her calls to Mike growing frantic. Mike, meanwhile, was distracted, his phone buzzing with a single, chilling message from Caitlin. "Return to Atlanta in 24 hours, or don't come back at all." Mike's face drained of color. He stood abruptly, leaving Emily at the restaurant table. "I have to go," he muttered, tossing cash down and grabbing his jacket. Emily's voice rose, sharp with panic. "Mike, what's happening? Talk to me." But he was already halfway to the door, his suitcase packed by midnight. Emily stood alone in their suite, the turquoise ocean mocking her through the window. For the first time, doubt crept in, cold and heavy. In Atlanta, Jake tucked Sophie into bed, reading her a story about a clever fox outsmarting a wolf. His phone stayed silent, no more taunting texts from Emily. He didn't know if she discovered the frozen accounts or the boxes in Savannah, but he didn't care. Every move, custody, finances, evidence, the house sale, was locking into place. Emily had gambled on freedom, but Jake was rewriting the rules. The next morning, Lauren called with news, a young couple had made an offer on the house, above asking price. Jake signed the preliminary papers, the sale set to close in days. He also received a call from Simon Kelly, his lawyer. "The court's expediting the full custody hearing," Simon said. "Emily's absence is killing her case. Keep those photos ready, they'll bury her." Jake hung up, his focus shifting to Sophie's laughter as she played in the backyard. The for sale sign swayed in the breeze, a signal that Emily's return would lead to a life she no longer recognized. Across town, Caitlin Brown sat in her office, the photos spread across her desk. She hadn't called Jake, but her silence was louder than words. Mike's plane was landing soon, and with it, the end of his charmed life. Jake wasn't celebrating. He was executing. Emily thought she'd outplayed him, but every click of his keyboard, every signed document, every delivered box tightened the noose. The final hearing loomed, and with it, the end game. Jake Harris stood in the backyard of his Atlanta home, watching Sophie chase a butterfly through the grass, her laughter cutting through the morning air. The for sale sign in the front yard gleamed, a done deal after a young couple's offer cleared escrow yesterday. Jake had spent the past week methodically unraveling Emily's life, securing custody of Sophie, locking her out of their finances, and shipping her belongings to her parents in Savannah. Now, the house sale marked the final erasure of their shared past. Emily, still in Cancun with Mike Rogers, had no idea her world was collapsing. His phone vibrated with a call from Tom Wilson, the private investigator. "Jake, it's done," Tom said, his voice clipped. "Mike Rogers boarded a flight to Atlanta last night. Emily's still at the resort, alone. I've got more photos, her trying to check out, looking panicked when her cards failed." Jake nodded, though Tom couldn't see it. "Send them to Simon Kelly. The hearing's tomorrow." Tom paused, then added, "Caitlin Brown's moving fast. Mike's in deep trouble." Jake hung up and turned to Sophie, who was now piling pebbles into a tiny tower. "Daddy, look! A castle!" she called. He knelt beside her, helping stack another stone. "Fit for a princess," he said, his mind already on the envelope he'd sent to Caitlin Brown, Mike's wife and CEO of Braun Enterprises. The photos of Mike and Emily's affair had landed, and Caitlin's response, an ultimatum for Mike to return or lose everything, had set off a chain reaction. In Cancun, Emily sat on the edge of her hotel bed, the suite's silence deafening. Mike had vanished without explanation, leaving his side of the closet empty, and his toiletries gone. Her calls to him went straight to voicemail. The resort staff had delivered a crushing blow. Her credit cards were declined, the room balance due. She'd scraped together enough from a hidden savings account to cover the bill and book a one-way flight to Atlanta, her hands shaking as she packed. Emily told herself she'd fix this. Jake was reasonable, he'd forgive her for Sophie's sake. But a knot of dread tightened in her chest. Her flight landed in Atlanta at dusk. Exhausted, she took an Uber to their suburban street, expecting to walk into the familiar comfort of home. Instead, she froze at the sight of the sold sign on the lawn. New cars filled the driveway, and through the window, she saw a family, strangers, setting the table for dinner. Emily's breath hitched as she fumbled with her keys at the front door. The lock didn't budge. The cylinders had changed. She pounded on the door until a woman appeared, her expression polite but guarded. "Can I help you?" the woman asked. "This is my house," Emily stammered. "My husband, my daughter." The woman shook her head. "We bought this place last week. The agent said the previous owner moved out." Emily's legs buckled. She sank onto the porch steps, her suitcase beside her. As the truth hit, Jake had sold their home without a word. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Emily, where are you?" "Your stuff's here. Come to Savannah now." Numb, Emily ordered another Uber and gave the driver her parents' address. The drive to Savannah felt endless, each mile stripping away the life she'd known. At her parents' house, she found rows of cardboard boxes on the porch, labeled in sharp black marker, "Emily, clothes, Emily, jewelry." Her mother Clara opened the door, her face etched with worry. "What did you do, Emily?" she whispered, leading her inside. Her father, Paul, sat at the kitchen table, a thick envelope in front of him. "This came today," he said, his voice heavy. Emily tore it open, her hands trembling. The documents inside were a gut punch, a divorce petition citing abandonment and infidelity, a custody request for Sophie, and copies of her own text to Jake. Flying to Cancun with my ex, don't be jealous. Worse, there were photos, her with Mike at dinner, on the beach, in moments she thought private. Each image was a nail in the coffin of her marriage. I need a lawyer, Emily rasped, her voice breaking. With what? Paul asked. Your accounts are frozen. Your cards don't work. Jake's covered every angle. Emily sank into a chair, the papers slipping from her hands. She'd thought Cancun was an escape, a chance to reclaim her youth. Instead, it was a trap she'd walked into blindly. In Atlanta, Jake prepared for the custody hearing, reviewing the evidence with Simon Kelly. The lawyer spread Tom's photos across his desk, each one damning. This is overkill, Simon said, almost grinning. The judge will eat this up. Emily's got nothing. Jake nodded, his focus unwavering. He wasn't fighting for revenge, he was fighting for Sophie, for a stable life free from Emily's chaos. That night he took Sophie for ice cream, her favorite chocolate fudge dripping onto her hands. Daddy, are we moving to a new house? She asked, her eyes wide. Jake smiled. Yeah, kiddo. A fresh start, just you and me. He didn't mention Emily, didn't need to. Sophie's world was intact, and that was all that mattered. Across town, Caitlin Brown sat in her office, finalizing Mike's downfall. She'd already filed for divorce, frozen his access to their accounts, and barred him from Braun Enterprises' properties. Mike, now back in Atlanta, stood outside their gated estate, clutching a suitcase and divorce papers, his calls to Caitlin unanswered. He'd gambled on Emily and lost everything. Emily, alone in her childhood bedroom in Savannah, stared at the ceiling, the weight of her choices crushing her. Her parents' whispers drifted through the wall, their disappointment palpable. Tomorrow's hearing would seal her fate, and she had no defense. Jake hadn't raised his voice or shed a tear, he'd simply outmaneuvered her, turning her own words into the weapon that dismantled her life. The Fulton County Family Courthouse buzzed with quiet tension as Jake Harris stood outside the courtroom, adjusting his tie. Sophie, his 5-year-old daughter, sat nearby with her kindergarten teacher, clutching a coloring book and happily scribbling. Jake's lawyer, Simon Kelly, flipped through a folder of evidence, photos, texts, and court orders that had taken shape over the past 2 weeks. Emily's reckless decision to jet off to Cancun with her ex, Mike Rogers, had handed Jake every advantage. Today, the final hearing would lock his plan into place. Inside, Emily shuffled in, her steps hesitant. She'd arrived from Savannah that morning, staying at her parents' house after finding her life packed into boxes and their Atlanta home sold. Her attempt to hire a lawyer had collapsed. Her frozen accounts left her with a public defender, Daniel Grant, who met her only an hour before the hearing. He scanned her file, his expression grim, and muttered, "This isn't looking good." The judge, a stern woman with a reputation for prioritizing children, called the session to order. Simon rose first, his voice steady as he laid out Jake's case. Your Honor, my client seeks permanent custody of his daughter and dissolution of his marriage based on abandonment and infidelity. The evidence is undeniable. He clicked a remote, and Emily's text appeared on a screen. Flying to Cancun with my ex, don't be jealous. The courtroom stirred, whispers rippling through the gallery. Simon continued, projecting photos from Jake's private investigator, Emily and Mike at a beachside dinner, their hands linked, a late-night embrace under resort lanterns, a stolen kiss by the ocean. Each image, time-stamped and verified, painted a picture of betrayal. While Mr. Harris cared for their daughter, Ms. Harris abandoned her responsibilities for a documented affair with Mike Rogers, husband of Caitlin Brown of Braun Enterprises, Simon said. Her absence and actions speak for themselves. Daniel Grant stood, clearing his throat. Your Honor, my client was under emotional stress and needed time to reflect. The judge cut him off, her eyes narrowing. Reflection doesn't involve leaving a 5-year-old without notice or provision, Mr. Grant. Nor does it include taunting a spouse via text. Daniel sat, his defense crumbling before it began. Simon pressed forward. We request full custody for Mr. Harris, confirmation of his sole ownership of the marital home, purchased before the marriage, and denial of any financial claims. The accounts have been restructured to protect the child's future. The judge nodded, her pen moving across her notes. The evidence is clear. Ms. Harris's actions constitute abandonment. Custody is awarded to Mr. Harris. Visitation rights for Ms. Harris are suspended pending a psychological evaluation. The home and financial claims are denied. Divorce granted. The gavel struck, its echo final. Jake exhaled, his shoulders relaxing for the first time in weeks. He glanced at Sophie, who waved her coloring book at him, oblivious to the stakes. Emily remained seated, her hands gripping the table, her face pale. The life she'd known, her home, her daughter, her security, had vanished in a single ruling. Outside, Jake took Sophie's hand, leading her to their car. "Ice cream time?" she asked, her eyes bright. "You bet, kiddo," Jake said, his voice light but his heart heavy with relief. They drove to a new house in a nearby suburb, a smaller place with a backyard perfect for Sophie's adventures. The sold sign on their old lawn was gone, replaced by a new family's laughter. Jake had rebuilt their world, brick by careful brick. In Savannah, Emily sat in her childhood bedroom, surrounded by cardboard boxes. Her parents' voices carried from the kitchen, laced with disappointment. A letter slid under her door, Jake's handwriting precise on the envelope. She opened it, her fingers trembling. Inside, a single note. "You wanted freedom. Now it's yours. Sophie's safe, and the house was always mine. Choose your next steps wisely." The words stung, not with anger but with finality. Emily clutched the letter, her choices replaying like a broken record. She'd gambled on a fleeting thrill with Mike, only to lose her family, her home, and her future. Mike, meanwhile, faced his own reckoning. Caitlin Brown had stripped him of access to her empire, leaving him with a suitcase and a divorce decree. He tried calling Emily, but she'd blocked his number, his betrayal as sharp as her own. That evening, Jake and Sophie sat on their new porch, fireflies flickering in the dusk. Sophie munched on chocolate ice cream, her giggles filling the air as Jake pointed out constellations. He hadn't yelled or fought dirty. He'd used Emily's own actions, her text, her affair, her absence, to dismantle her world with surgical precision. The courts had sided with him, Sophie was secure, and their new life was beginning. Emily, alone in Savannah, stared at the boxes of her old life. Her parents offered no comfort, their silence a judgment heavier than words. She'd thought Cancun was an escape, a chance to rewrite her story. Instead, it was the chapter that ended everything. Jake's note lay on the floor, a reminder that actions had consequences, and hers had cost her everything. The story closed with Jake and Sophie driving off into the Atlanta sunset, their bond unbreakable. Emily's fate was a warning, choices ripple, and betrayal burns bridges. For viewers, the question lingered, was Jake's response fair, or did he go too far? What would you do if faced with that text? Share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more stories where actions meet justice.